Now, this morning you will have seen all sorts of devastating stories about Geoffrey Cox, the Attorney General, with his booming voice. I cannot in all good conscience support Boris Johnson in this law-breaking endeavour. Yeah, well, thanks very much, Geoffrey. We've seen you. We've done the act. We've seen all that. Now you can go away. You're irrelevant. Nobody gives a monkey's what you say. Nobody cares what you think. And quite frankly, you might as well just go back to your constituents and resign. Thank you very much indeed. You want to be a Tory? Support the Tory party. You want to be on the government side? Support the government. Don't sit there as if you've got some unconscionable reason to support the European Union over the government. Andrew Neil put out a very good tweet over the weekend in which he basically said anyone who is critical of the government because they rather prefer the bullying nature of the European Union to the supposedly steadfast nature of the British government has got a screw loose. Let's talk to Kate Hoey, formerly, of course, a Labour MP, now a peer in the House of Lords, also a woman who knows an awful lot more about Northern Ireland than you can shake a stick at. Kate, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
Thanks very much indeed for joining us. I'm sick to death of these rebel Tories. What's wrong with them?
Well, I think we're seeing the last gasp of people who have never wanted us to leave the European Union, and then a few people who feel that they have to sort of stick to this kind of, I think, quite ridiculous, extreme view of the rule of law in terms of the international treaty. But I'm sorry I'm not there to vote, tonight. I hope I'll have taken my seat in the Lords to vote when it gets to the Lords, because I'm sure it will go through tonight. I'm sure the vote will go through. And I think that the bill is a very proportionate view of looking at how the European Union has reacted and actually behaved since the treaty was signed, because they have just not acted in good faith. And it's very clear that the little committee that was set up, that Michael Gove is on, to work to look at the protocol, has not been working properly, and that Michael Gove, and if Michael Gove feels that they really have been acting in without any good faith, then I'm going to believe the British government rather than the European Union mandarins, I'm afraid.
Well, exactly. I mean, isn't it extraordinary that there are still those out there who would rather side with the European Union against the British government, which was elected in a massive majority to get Brexit done, to leave the EU? I mean, Dominic Grieve has never been busier, this weekend, where he was interviewed by all sorts of idiots who thought that basically he has something to offer. He doesn't have anything to offer.
And I think it's the same old people coming out with the same old views on this, just doing anything to actually criticise the government on this issue. It all comes down to the whole question of Northern Ireland and the peace process and the border. And it just seemed to me that if we're going to be, I don't accept anything to do with the Good Friday Agreement has anything to do with this, actually. But if you do accept that somehow it's going to threaten the peace process by having a border down between the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland, then that's breaking the Good Friday Agreement. Why is it not then breaking the Good Friday Agreement to have a border down the Irish Sea, which is something which is anathema to people who want to stay part of the United Kingdom?
Right.
And it just seems to me that any MP tonight who actually votes against this bill is really saying quite straightforwardly that they do not want Northern Ireland, that they do not care about Northern Ireland being in the Union, and that they would prefer to put their faith in the European Union and all the kinds of maverick people that are in there and the way they have behaved. I don't think it's quite shocking, and tonight will really test, I think, MPs as to whether they are genuinely, pro the United Kingdom, or whether they are simply wanting to be part of some kind of unelected federal kind of state of the European Union, because that's what they're really saying tonight if they vote against this bill.
Yes, and I mean, people have been agitating all weekend, and I include in that the foreign minister of the Irish government, who have always been very pro-European in this whole kind of conversation. They've never really sided with the UK, but they've been proved wrong time and time again. But even as I was listening to an interview with the foreign minister, somebody said, "Oh, will this bring the the United Ireland poll any closer?" And even he admitted, actually, no, it won't. Because in the end, there is only going to be, I found this quite interesting in terms of democracy, there's only going to be a poll if there is a majority belief that there are people in the north who want to have a united Ireland, which at the moment isn't the case.
Yes, it has to be there can't be a referendum until it's really very, very clear that there is a majority wanting to leave the United Kingdom. And I do not think that is going to happen in my lifetime and probably for a very long time. But, it is important to remember what the EU has done. The actual threat that they made, that if they didn't get what they wanted, they would literally stop produce going from Great Britain to Northern Ireland. They'll have almost a kind of food embargo.
Yes.
Now, if anything's going to threaten the peace process, I would have thought that would be something that would be pretty high up there. And I find it unimaginable that everyone who's been, particularly from the Republic of Ireland, because their trade is actually incredibly important with Great Britain. And you would think by now that their government would be recognising that when it suits the European Union, they will turn on the Republic of Ireland too. The idea that somehow the Republic of Ireland is being so supportive of the EU because it's going to help them in the future already. They've been given a huge bill for all the latest COVID preparations,
right.
Extra money. So I think this is going to be, it's very short-sighted of the Irish government. And I think there'll be a lot of Irish people more and more questioning why they are taking this ridiculous role of pretending that they're interested in the United Kingdom. The idea that Coveney was saying, and it's so sad that the United Kingdom is going to lose faith in the world in terms of what they're doing with this bill. I really don't think that Coveney is particularly interested in how well the United Kingdom is thought of in the rest of the world.
No, and also it's a rather ludicrous idea, isn't it, that, somehow we are ruining our reputation. Quite frankly, the government was always, I said this last year, the government is doing the best it can to negotiate in the best way that it can with the best will in the world. The trouble is you're dealing with a bunch of snakes in the European Union who are no more loyal to us than they would be to anybody else that they see as traitorous to the cause, and they will do everything they can to stitch us up.
And they're being backed up, I'm afraid, by and helped by British MPs. And of course, this is what happened during the original negotiation. They knew that every time there was a problem, they were going to get support. The European Union would be getting support from people within our British Parliament. And it is quite shocking that is now continuing. But I was quite, when I saw the John Major, Tony Blair letter, I felt quite sure that the vote would actually be bigger tonight for the bill, because I remember when they visited Northern Ireland and crossed the bridge in Londonderry / Derry, they and calling on people to vote to remain. Actually, the polls showed later that actually more people had decided, because Tony Blair and John Major was saying it, that they would be voting to leave. So I wasn't too upset about that, but it is interesting to see all the ex-prime ministers. I was disappointed in David Cameron coming out because he kept very quiet up until now. But again, there is something in the withdrawal agreement, Article 38, that actually gives Parliament sovereignty. So Parliament has the right to change slightly things that have been agreed if it's not in the interest of our country, and it's certainly not in the interest of our country. And of course, in my view, if we end up with no agreement, no trade agreement, then I don't see that the withdrawal agreement should stand, and therefore we shouldn't be giving the £39 billion and all the extra things that the European Union want.
But isn't it extraordinary that the media is still playing the same old game, right? When we did that deal on Friday with Japan, all the reports that I saw, and I include our own news team here at Talk Radio, are saying things like, but it doesn't really make much difference to the trade overall, because it could be that we'd lose a lot more trade by not having any deal with the European Union. And you go, well, that's not news. The news is we've got a trade deal with Japan. The news is not that we might lose more money by not getting a trade deal with the EU.
Well, I can forgive some of the media who are not being paid by my license fee, but what I can't forgive is the BBC attitude to all of this. And that's why, the whole campaign to look at the license fee, to stop making it a criminal offence, to pay it, and indeed to actually to use that sort of modern phrase, defund the BBC is actually very, very important now, because the BBC is not acting as it should do. First of all, obviously, we want it to be impartial, but we hope that it is actually there as a British broadcasting corporation, not a European Union broadcasting corporation. And that's the way some of the reporting has come across.
Yes, exactly right. And what's the feeling in Northern Ireland, Kate? Because, of course, the problem for us sitting here in the capital is that we get told things by the media about what Northern Ireland believes about this deal. But actually, the ordinary people in Northern Ireland we very rarely hear from. So what's the feeling on the street as far as this whole deal is concerned?
Well, I think the small business, there was no doubt about it. Northern Ireland voted, not by a huge majority, but voted to remain. But of course, as part of the United Kingdom, voted to leave, and most people have accepted that. The business community just want, as they've always wanted, certainty. And what they don't want is to have any kind of paperwork, extra administration costs in actually moving their goods to their main market, which is Great Britain. Right. And similarly, Great Britain people, people who are trying to bring in something from Great Britain don't want to find that they're going to have to pay extra just because the European Union has decided that that particular good might go on down across the border and into what they call their single market. Yeah. So it really does amaze me that anyone who cares about our country and cares about the union could possibly think of voting against this very sensible bill that's coming through tonight, which will actually mean that if the European Union do, as it looks like they might do, completely try to not try to behave in a way that is just not acceptable internationally, never name international treaties, then we have a way out of that. And that's why Boris Johnson has brought that bill forward. And I think most people in Northern Ireland, when it comes to the bit, would accept, even if they're nationalists, that most of the trade goes to Great Britain, and that's what's important.
Right. And do you think this is the first of many sort of skirmishes, if you like? Is it being played up too much as a big battle between UK sovereignty and the European Union, who don't seem to want to allow Britain to have sovereignty over its own country?
Well, I don't think the European Union has actually really learnt or recognised yet that we have left, and that therefore one of the reasons we wanted to leave, the main reason, is that we wanted to make our own laws and our rules and get our fishing back and all of those things that went on during the referendum. I don't think they've quite accepted that, and they are terrified, absolutely terrified, especially what's happening with all the other issues within the European Union, that if we are successful, as we will be when we finally get out and get our complete independence, then other countries will want to follow. And that is what this is all about. They want to show that you will be punished if you leave the European Union. You'll be punished if you break away from this little clique. And part of this is part of this whole discussion at the moment is because of that. And it's just very disappointing that so many of our own British MPs seem to be have been taken in by the European Union.
Yeah, well, as I said at the start of the show, I would get rid of them all, ditch them all, make them all stand in by-elections and see how they like that for the onions, because I think they might get a bit of a shock from the electorate.
Well, I think the electorate showed at the last general election that they wanted Brexit done. Of course, we've got out now, but the trade arrangements were always going to be tricky, but they didn't need to be tricky if the European Union had showed good faith, and the European Union has not showed good faith.
It really hasn't. And just on a sort of a general matter, Kate, how's the COVID scenario over there? How's the local administration, as I like to call it, dealing with it? I mean, I'm not sure that this law of 6 is going to work particularly well. I'm not sure that the government, like all governments at the moment in the world, is taking the right tack here.
Well, we have a law of 6, but inside only. That was brought in last week because the numbers of people testing had gone up. But of course, like throughout the rest of the United Kingdom, most of the people who are testing now are of a younger age. Some people are testing and have absolutely no symptoms whatsoever. So it is a complicated issue. And my instinct, as always on these things, is people most people, whatever is said, there's always going to be people who would break whatever it is. So why punish the good people?
Yeah.
And therefore, I do think more and more it should be left to the common sense of people. Obviously, certain things should not be allowed, like very, very much like mass gatherings of people. But then that only seems to happen if you're going on an Extinction Rebellion.
And that's okay, because they've given them an exemption. I mean, it's beggars belief, isn't it?
But Northern Ireland has done very well, really, and it's not surprising because we are, it's quite a lot of open space, and I think people on the whole have followed the rules. A lot of people were wearing masks, for example, before they had to, and they only have to in shops now. And again, common sense should prevail. We can't go on like this, because we've got to start getting back to some kind of normality.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. Kate, thanks very much indeed. Hopefully we'll see you in London soon. Kate Hoey, Labour peer, reporting into us from Northern Ireland, where, of course, the European Union is saying, oh, well, we can't let them do that. We'll have to stop them doing that because we are still in charge of the other part of Ireland, and we will make sure that Northern Ireland isn't able to do the things that the British government, which actually is the administrator of Northern Ireland, wants to do. It's an absolute nonsense. I'm absolutely all for letting the European Union know that we will not take any prisoners. We are not interested in what they think they want us to do. We are not interested in them dictating policy to us. All we are interested in is making sure that the European Union gets their noses firmly out of the trough of the UK. We stop giving them money, we stop giving them access, and we tell them quite firmly, this is what we're doing. And whether you like it or not, it's going to happen. So get stuffed. And for all you Tories out there who think that you know better than the electorate who voted to get Brexit done, then stand on your morals. Take yourselves out of the Conservative Party, resign from it today, stand for election in a by-election and see how you get on. That's my challenge to you all. And not one of you will do it, because you know why? You're all mealy-mouthed, you're all useless, Geoffrey Cox included. Geoffrey Cox, I'm the most important man in my world. Well, no, you're not. You're a plank. This is Talk Radio.